Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Edge of Adventure. My name is Adam Asher. It means a lot to me, actually, that you would take the time to join us for this program. And whether you're listening to the audio podcast or the video podcast, thank you so much for being a part of the Edge of Adventure and this amazing network, this amazing family worldwide, as we get to know people who have chosen to do something with their lives that is maybe a little bit different. They've chosen to give their lives in some capacity to serve others, to serve often marginalized or forgotten people and people groups, but to let them know that they're not really forgotten. And it means a lot. I get this wonderful privilege of getting to meet and get to know these organizations and also get to meet the people who have been fundamental in the operation and often the founding of these organizations. So today, I'd like to take us to the Philippines. Today, we're going to discover an organization called Childhope Philippines Foundation. And the person we're going to meet today is Chips Guevara, who is chairman of the foundation, and he's also my guest today, right here on the Edge of Adventure. Chips, first of all, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you for having us. And yeah, it's a privilege to be featured by Edge of Adventure.
Well, thank you for taking the time. Of course, I'm in Atlanta, which puts me in the Eastern time zone in the US, and you're joining us today from, I pull it up on the screen here, Makati City, Philippines.
Yes, that's correct.
And so for this conversation, you've gotten up very early in the morning, and we appreciate that. And it's just wonderful the way technology helps to pull us all together. Well, let's get started, Chips. Let's introduce this concept of Child Hope Philippines Foundation. Big picture overview, because of course we're going to drill down into the details. But what is the heart and soul of what you and your wonderful team do?
Uh, Childhope Philippines, uh, we care for street children in a very holistic way. Um, it started out as a program for child protection, and we were protecting or developing programs that protect children, the most vulnerable children, and it kind of zeroed in on street children because they're really one of the most vulnerable children in the country. Um, and from there, it developed. Our founder, Tess Silva, who's a professional social worker, really dedicated her whole life to helping the marginalized. And then um, and she was when she founded Child Hope, she just zeroed in on street children. And we have several programs. We take care of. Um, we have a feeding program. We have an education program, which we'll be, I think, talking about more later. The street education program, and then we have a health program. So we have a full-time doctor that goes around and cares for and treats street children and sometimes they're members of their family as well. Um, and yeah, so that's the heart of Child Hope, taking care of the street children of Metro Manila.
Well, we are talking today with Chips Guevara. He's the chairman at Child Hope Philippines Foundation. Going to get to know them today. And of course, if you're watching now the video version of the podcast, we are going to now be able to share some pictures and just sort of also get to know them uh, from a video standpoint. All right. But you say you've used the term, and I've noticed it is a term that is mentioned in your material as you convey to the world who you're helping. You use the term street kids.
Yes.
What does that mean?
Street kids are children that are based on the street. They either belong to street-based families, so they're homeless. They don't have a real home to go to, so they live on the sidewalk or in makeshift carton boxes. Um, or they belong to urban poor families, and they're made to work on the streets, selling street food or flowers, um, and they earn their living on the street. Yeah.
So in some cases, um, are they on their own? I mean, I know at times they're with a family who is living on the street. Are these kids sometimes left to fend for themselves? Honest question.
Yes, yes. They a number of them are left to fend for themselves, so away from their families.
This is the Edge of Adventure. We're talking Child Hope Philippines Foundation, and my guest today is Chips Guevara. He is the chairman. And I think it's fair to say then, you mentioned a few different types of ways that you help to care for these children and their families. I think it's probably okay to use the term holistic here. You're targeting a variety of different types of needs. What are those needs? And give us a little background into each one. I'm sure it's very complicated, and it's not one of those things that can be fully explained. I know, but give us an idea the holistic approach that you guys take and the different needs that you seek to meet in this wonderful care for the street children looks like what?
Yeah. Okay. So for our first uh, primary purpose really is for child protection, and the street children, a certain percentage of them, I believe it's 5 to 10%, somewhere within that range. They experience some sort of abuse, whether it's a physical abuse or sexual abuse. It could happen at home, uh, with their families. It could happen through child prostitution, and so we are, I guess, what you would call the frontliners, the first responders, um, to this situation. So we meet children, the street children, where they're most comfortable in their own territory, which is on the street. And through our programs, when they start participating in their programs, they oftentimes feel comfortable enough to share their experiences with our social workers. And once we find out there is some sort of abuse happening, we refer them to centers who care, who can provide special care. So, for example, one of our sister organizations, Tahanan Santa Lucia, is was also founded by our founder, Teresita Silva, and she put up this foundation to care for abused girls who require special care. So Child Hope engages them firsthand, first and foremost, and then we once we discover there's some sort of abuse going on, we refer them to different centers like Tahanan Santa Lucia. And then, but most of them are just exposed to. They're very vulnerable. They're out on the street. Many of them don't have parental care, and that's where our social workers come in, and our they and we the objective really is to try to get them to go to school. Um, and when I first started volunteering for Child Hope, I really had no idea about street kids, and in my mind, you just kind of raise money for scholarships and they go to school, but it doesn't happen that way. Many of them require a lot of development before and care before they actually want to go to school, or feel like they deserve to go to school. So there's a lot of psychosocial intervention. They uh, when I first met the street kids, I volunteered as a math tutor. That's how I got involved with Child Hope. And when I first met them, I realized that their self-image was very, very poor. They Many of them felt that they were um, too dumb to go to school because they were street kids. So really, there's a lot of confidence building that needs to happen, uh, and then they can't go to school if they're hungry. So we do have a feeding program, and that happens during our street sessions. And then they cannot go to school also if they're in poor health. So we have a full-time medical doctor and a mobile clinic that goes around and cares for and treats the street children of their illnesses. Um, so really, we have all these, and then on top of that, so once they finish high school, we also help them um, become employable. So we um, assist them in terms of enrolling in a vocational school. So hotel and restaurant services um, is one of the paths they take, so that they can be employed by restaurants and hotels, uh, and and those who get uh, the privilege of being considered for a scholarship, we also support them. So we partner with other organizations who provide college scholarships. And we've had a number of success stories. I'm happy to say that personally I've been involved when I was a math tutor. Some of my pupils um, have graduated college. Our biggest success story is Dan De Happin, who is now in Germany. Uh, he was able to get a scholarship at the Robert Bosch University in Germany, and he ended up taking social work as a course. Um, and he's very happy. I see him on Facebook now. He's happily married to this beautiful German girl, and they have a child together. And yeah, it's just it delights me seeing him in that way.
So there's a variety of different ways. This holistic approach includes protection, education, feeding, healthcare, and also the imparting of skills and helping them to prepare for their lives, right, and to be able to make a living and these sorts of things. So I'm sure that's not. I'm sure there's more because there always is. These things are always beautifully complicated and yet very simple when you get right down to it. When you're just caring for the person and you think about these wonderful, beautiful kids who are through in some form or another forced to live on the street. And I want to go back to that concept. And you painted a picture. It's not a pretty picture. It's there's sadness there when you think about what their lives are like. How big of a problem is this? Is it
Uh,
common?
yes, yeah, it's very common in the Philippines. Yeah, the street children problem is a cycle that happens, and it's all over the country. And I'm sure it's not just in the Philippines. I'm sure it's quite prevalent in many countries like the Philippines. Um, and it really starts with uh, the urban poor, um, the values that they have. There's this thinking that uh, when you have children, they're seen as uh, working hands. And as soon as they can contribute to the income of the family, they're made to work. And Yeah, and sometimes education is not really in the horizon. And so our founder Teresita Silva recognizes this cycle. So the urban poor with their values are producing more and more street children, and that's why she also had we also have a partner organization, another sister foundation called FSED. So they work with the urban poor families to try to correct uh, or educate the parents uh, and try to instill values that um, would prevent the generation of more street children. Yeah. So yeah.
This is the Edge of Adventure. We're talking today with Chips Guevara. He is chairman at Childhope Philippines Foundation, joining us today from the Philippines. And we're getting to know the organization, learning a little bit about what they do. You know, the thing about this podcast, this thing that I call the Edge of Adventure, is there's always this mix of two very distinct emotions, right? There's the sadness because we are talking about, in this case and every time we're on one of these shows, we're always talking about great need, often great suffering. It's a fact, and there's a sadness in that. And and the hope, though, the other distinct emotion that we have and hopefully get to share in these podcasts is the sense of hope, knowing that there are good people. I still believe in good. There are these good people and these organizations doing good things, helping others and bringing a sense of hope to them. And that brings a sense of hope to all of us in this world that we live in, knowing that there is suffering, there is pain, but there's always also hope. There's also joy. Do you see, as you all begin to work with these children and you reach them in their weakness, in their vulnerability, and oftentimes in their suffering, and as you begin through the years to work with them, do you see hope restored or perhaps hope imparted to them for the first time?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I have to say, when I was volunteering as a math tutor, I guess maybe I was kind of shielded from most of the suffering that they go through. I mean, I had direct, of course, I was teaching them. I had direct contact with them, but I think it's really the social workers that bear the emotional um, burden of listening to their stories directly. So I did not have that kind of detailed information about the kids I was tutoring. But sometimes I get a glimpse. For example, one of the students I had, he surprised me with poetry, and and it was about Greek mythology, and this was even way before the Marvel movies were made. And he talked about two gods that were at war with each other, Eros and Thanos. And so Eros was the god of love, and Thanos was the god of death, and how they battled each other. And in the end, Eros lost, and but uh, I can't remember the exact words, but the he ended the poetry with um, uh, a tree sprouting out and new leaves. So there was this kind of like this resurrection, I guess like a resurrection story, and uh, he was pulled out of the street and put in a center. So I don't know the actual details of his story, but normally when they're pulled out and put in a center, they are suffering abuse. Um, the last time we still keep in touch through Facebook. He he graduate. He wanted to become an engineer, and it was a big compliment to me because I'm an engineer. So when I was tutoring him, he had this. He realized how smart he was. He was really by far the smartest among my pupils, and so his confidence was built up, and he had this ambition to become an engineer, and he um, unfortunately, he didn't pass the entrance exam to any of the engineering colleges. So he ended up taking propeller fitting in this vocational school, and ended up being a marine mechanic. Uh, so he became a seaman. He's earning well now. He was able to buy his own house. He's married, and I just remember having this conversation with him with one of our sports events. By the way, we do have a sport event also once a year, to help children become, play and be children. Um, so when I met him last time physically, he just told me about the career path he wants to take. He wanted to become a chief mechanic on a boat, on a ship, and he told me the kind of salary that he'd be earning if he reached that level. And man, it's like way out of poverty. He's going to become one of the wealthy people of Manila if he achieves that dream. And yeah, just so happy for him that how his life is turning out. From So I don't know the
Chips
details, but he's there, on his way
Chips
there.
Guevara is my guest today. He's chairman at Childhope Philippines Foundation, and we're getting to know them. And you guys are in Makati City, or that's where you are right now. Is that a suburb of Manila?
Metro Manila is composed of several cities, and I can't remember how many. But I think we're seven major cities that are adjacent with each other, and uh, the city of Manila is where Child Hope is based. So the old city of Manila. It's
Okay.
different from Makati City.
Well, Chips, I also like to ask personal questions because I really do think there's value in getting to know the person. Okay, so now let me move now into meddling. All right, you're a math tutor. One of the ways that you got started, one of the ways that you've enjoyed serving at Child Hope is as a math tutor. So, what do you like about math, and how does that apply to these kids? How is it meaningful to them?
Um, I've always liked math. I guess there's this uh, preconceived notion that math is difficult. But it's actually not. Um, Once you understand the concepts, it just becomes so easy. There's just certain foundations that you need to build, and then math becomes easy. And I've always found math to be easy. Um, I had very good teachers, and those who didn't have good math teachers have found math to be difficult. And uh, when I was in college, to earn extra money, I started tutoring grade school kids math, those who were having difficulty. And I found out that I was quite good at it, at tutoring, helping them understand. I guess I learned from my teachers. And uh, so I thoroughly enjoyed it. And when I was in high school, I studied in a Jesuit school, and we had this program. Our school, Ateneo de Manila, we have this motto called "Man for Others," and I believe the school really embodied this motto. So every Friday in our senior year of high school, we were asked to, no, we were required, we were required to volunteer to help out public school kids. Unlike in the U.S., the public school system is very good. Here, the quality of education in the public school is um, it needs a lot of improvement. They don't have enough budget. Um, the the teachers are very before were very poorly paid. So you can imagine the kind of morale they have, right, within the school. So we were asked uh, to tutor. So at the first time I started tutoring English, um, and I really enjoyed working with the public school kids. Um, and ever since then, I mean, it left a mark on me. And then so when I went into college, I continued tutoring, Uh, but I was being paid for it. I was earning extra money, and um, then I ended up being an engineer and then joining the corporate world. I was working for Unilever. So that it occupied all my time. Really, I was so busy. I couldn't do any of the tutoring, but it was there in the back of my head. Something I really enjoyed. In fact, it's something I might do as a retirement. A retirement profession is to teach. And so when Akiko and I got married, when we were newly married, the house that we stayed in was right across Childhope. And I heard about the organization because they were our neighbor, and I would see the street kids coming in and out. So I just knocked on their door and I said, "Hey, can I volunteer to teach math? Do you have a need for a math tutor?" And they were like, "Wow, we really do need one because the kids we that are enrolled in public school, uh, they're flunking out because of math, and they really need help." So it's like, okay. So I started volunteering, and uh, it was once a week, every Thursday for 1 hour a week. I did that for 2 years, and the objective really was for them not to flunk out of school, uh, and they had this math stress. Every time I would write numbers, I could see their faces like stressing out, the veins coming out of their foreheads, and like so I realized the first thing I had to do was really to relax their minds, because if they can't relax, they can't think. If they're too stressed, they cannot think. So that was the first thing I did, uh, and to start building their confidence, to let them know that they are intelligent people, that they deserve and have the right to go to school. And I think once we got over that hurdle, light bulbs started flashing. They started getting correct answers. The more correct answers they had, they started to build up. And really, this is really the fulfilling part about teaching, is when those light bulbs start flaring up, and they're like, I get it. I understand it now. And as a teacher or a tutor, that is really fulfilling. And um, the other part of it is the confidence that's built up, like over a span of 2 years. I saw their faces, from being from feeling dumb, from feeling stupid, from feeling that they don't deserve anything. And then after 2 years, it's like, I'm smart. I can do this. I want to be an engineer. I want to be an architect. I want to be a teacher. You know, when I started with them, the first thing I asked them was, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" And it was like, "Oh, I want to be an actress because I can't do math. I want to be something because I can't do math." Like that. And then and after 2 years, now they wanted to be engineers. They wanted to be architects. They wanted to be. I have one pupil that's now an accountant. You know, so that is so fulfilling for me.
It must be. And as I listen to you share, Chips, I think that part of what I take away from what you're saying, and I see, because I see it on your face and I hear it in your voice, the skills and the talent that you have, your ability, your opportunity to share that with someone else and to invest in these kids who might not have such an opportunity if it weren't for you, if it weren't for Child Hope Philippines, right? I mean, this is an amazing opportunity that you're helping to present to other people, to these precious kids and their families. But what a wonderful opportunity it is to share your own skill set. Now, I listen to you talk about math. I think about how much you enriched their lives and that investment. What a wonderful thing it is. And yet, that there's something we can all take from that, Chips. We can all take some, that we all have a skill. What are we doing with it? What are we doing with it? Are we putting it to use for anything other than our paycheck? I mean, are we letting it serve other people in some way? And that is what I hear. The story that you're sharing, that's what I hear. For you, for your own personal journey, your own personal life's adventure. And then, of course, it applies directly to Child Hope Philippines Foundation. And the next question and the thing that I want to ask you about ties directly into that, which is Calle Escuela, right? Let me see if I did I say that
Mhm.
anything close to correct. This is how I see it written, Calle Escuela.
You said it perfectly.
All right, thank you. And it means mobile education.
Yeah, it means street education. Actually, the direct translation. So calle is the Philippines used to be a Spanish colony, so you'll see Spanish words there. Calle, escuela. So it means a street school.
So
Yeah.
it's like, uh, again, we're looking at the video version here. If you're watching the video version, always available at theedgeofadventure.com. If you were to go to theedgeofadventure.com/podcast, you'll see the listings. Look for Child Hope Philippines, and you can watch the video version if you're listening on Spotify or Apple or Google or something like that right now. You can always catch up to the video version and see a little bit more, and you see these wonderful kids, and it wins your heart, right? I mean, that's the thing I like about the pictures. Trust me, I'm an audio guy, I'm a radio guy. I love that. But when you see a picture, it does very easily win your heart, and you see these kids, especially, it gets to you. But through Calle Escuela, what are you guys doing? I'm looking at I see a vehicle of some sort with what? What is this vehicle providing? Where is it going and who is it serving?
Okay, maybe I can talk about how when I joined the board or when I started tutoring, Calle Escuela was actually it was literally a teacher and a social worker going on the street. So they always go in pairs, and engaging the street children there, and they would do their teaching sessions in the parking lot of a fast food restaurant or in the parking lot of an abandoned building, and where the street kids hang out, or in the sidewalk. Um, and then as the years went by, we started to develop it further, adding more technology into it. So it evolved into what you see right now. So it's a mobile education van. So we had a lot of corporate sponsors that were able to help us develop this. IT providers, banks that were able to donate for us to be able to buy a vehicle and retrofit it with tablets, and there's Wi-Fi, and that's how we're able to continue the street education program during the pandemic. We need to be able to do social distancing while doing our sessions. Uh, so during these sessions, um, we talk about values. So many of the kids really, it's like basic parenting, telling them what's right and what's wrong, what's correct behavior and what's wrong behavior. Um, because really, when you meet the street kids for the first time, before they go through our program, they're quite rough around the edges. And many people have unpleasant experiences with street kids. So it's just being respectful, uh, instilling good values, and also it's the first time they experience basic numeracy and literacy. So it's the first time they get a taste of academic education, reading, writing, um, grammar, counting. A little addition there, and so it exposes them for the first time to academic education, and that's where we hook them to try to want to be in a formal education system in public school. Um, and really, this is where we engage the street kids for the first time is through our street education program. So the incentive we have is a meal at the end of the session. So they have to attend. They have to attend the whole session, and they get a meal at the end. And so this is their incentive to continue on. And right now during the pandemic, you can see here the receiving packages. These are relief goods because their ability to earn income was greatly curtailed during this pandemic. There were no people in the streets. The streets were empty, and that's where they found their livelihood, selling street food and flowers and begging. Now all of that income is stopped. So our donors, our partner institutions, have allowed us to kind of reallocate the funding towards a relief effort.
Chips Guevara is my guest today from Childhope Philippines Foundation. You can look them up online at childhope.org.ph. Childhope.org.ph. Or, as always, you'll find the links in the post associated with this podcast online at theedgeofadventure.com. Chips, what do you think, in your estimation, is the hardest part about what you guys do?
Uh, for our social workers, our street educators, the street educators would be the social workers and the teachers that go out. That's a hard job, um, and I think rewarding them or paying them aptly is quite a challenge because we have um, these people, if they teach in a public school, if they work for the government, or if they work for the Department of Social Welfare, they'll earn a lot more than what we can afford to pay them. And but th- they have made the conscious decision to stay with Child Hope because they care about the street kids so much, and they see how the programs are working, and they really have this dedication to help the street kids. But you can only be a martyr for so long, and we've had some that have stayed 20 years with us, and I you know to be earning that kind of salary for 20 years, for me, it breaks my heart. I wish we could pay more to just make it sustainable for themselves. They sacrifice so much of their lives, um, and our founder, Teresita Silva, when she started Child Hope, she was full-time executive director of Child Hope, um, but she never took a salary. I found that out when I joined the board, that she never took a salary. So it was really just an outpouring of generosity, of their time and effort, and just love, complete love for the street kids. So that for me is, I wish we could I wish we could pay more, you know, uh, just to make it sustainable for them. So raising funds is quite a challenge, especially during this time of pandemic. A lot of companies have held back in terms of their donations. It's it's shrunk. Um, a lot of companies are suffering, so they don't have that spare cash. Their CSR programs are, it's been reallocations. Uh, and then making it sustainable. So on the board, it really one of our main functions is to raise funds. And um, if you keep approaching the same people, the same companies for donations, there's what you call donor fatigue. There's like, oh, they're back, we're, we're back asking for money, and really, it's our job uh, to to be the beggars, right? We're asking for donations, um, and so there's still a lot of people that want to support, but it's just the times are tough right now. And then making it sustainable, because we pay a salary. We have to maintain this payroll all year round, and donations are not continuous. So we have to keep trying to find ways to sustain Child Hope's operations. And yeah, so everyone's making sacrifices. Our executive director, uh, he's a medical doctor. He really could be earning a lot more outside, but he decides to remain in Child Hope. Um, I wish we could find a way to make it more rewarding for them for the sacrifices they do, because it's really a lot of hard work.
And on behalf of Child Hope, I'll certainly say this, and I do quite often. If you feel like you've connected with Child Hope, if you have a heart for the Philippines, you have a heart for these street kids, and you're thinking, hey, I don't know, this might be something I should be involved in, or my company should be involved in. I encourage you to reach out to them directly, childhope.org.ph, childhope.org.ph. Get to know them better, message them, tell them that you heard about it here on the Edge of Adventure, and you're moved by what they do in their heart, and just get to know them better. And then perhaps you'll be called to support them financially or in some way. So please explore that option. If it's something that's tugging at your heart, that's kind of always my rule, is if you feel like this is something you should get involved in, and this might be the organization you need to get behind, then look into it further. Don't ignore that feeling. And I know what you're saying, Chips. I mean, it when asking for funds, it can feel like you're begging, but you guys are doing wonderful, remarkable things. You're making a difference in the lives of these kids. I hear the stories. So like, I listen to you talk, I look at the pictures, I get to know what you do, and the kids that you work with, and I think about how they come from a life where there is no hope, and then you come in and you bring hope, and you bring some love, and you give to them, you feed them, you help to take care of them, but you also help to teach them and challenge them. It's not just a handout. You're also, requiring from them to learn and give and grow. And I think it's just a very, very powerful combination. And I want to congratulate you on that. I know that you too invest a lot of time in this, and you could be doing other things. And that's true for your entire team. And I also hear your respect and your care and your love for the team who's out there on the streets taking care of these kids. And it's a very wonderful thing. So, yes, a couple of final things as we wrap up here. What other than financially, of course, we've covered that, but other than financially, is there anything else that the viewers and the listeners could do to help, to support, to encourage you guys?
Uh, well, I guess maybe if you are touched or are moved by what we do or inspired, maybe talk about it, spread the word. Just I I don't. I mean, I haven't been tutoring in a long time, but these are one of the things that people could volunteer for once before the pandemic. Uh, Corporations have made it their CSR program before, and they got their employees involved. Uh, because it is a very fulfilling experience for the staff of the companies to participate in our programs. Um, Before we used to have, and hopefully we can restore this. Like every Saturday, we have this big feeding program in a church, and uh, we the people who would sponsor the feeding on that Saturday would organize activities, something simple like book reading. So the mother of a friend of ours, she was an English teacher, so she sat down and read books to them, and they all just sat around her on the floor and just listened to stories. And um, yeah, the street kids, they need to be allowed to be children. You know, listen to stories, play games, do sports, uh, be friends with each other. uh, and have those opportunities to develop into full human beings, productive citizens of the country, uh, contributing and you know having that self image of that they are good people, they're intelligent, and are human beings that deserve the same respect as everybody else.
Chip's final question for the broadcast today. Why does any of this matter? The world is busy. We've got stuff to do. We've got things to take care of. We've got responsibilities. We got to make a living. Blah, blah, blah. Then you got this opportunity to serve. Why does it matter? Why does it matter as much or so much to take the opportunity and serve in this capacity, and as it relates specifically to these kids that you guys reach out to at Childhope Philippines Foundation? Why does it matter? Big picture.
The street kids are human beings. They're children. They they deserve such. Um, they street children are one of the most neglected sectors of society. Um, I even have heard comments among some within my circle of friends like, "Oh, they're there again. You know, they're so bothersome, and they talk as if they don't really deserve to live, but they're human beings. You know, they deserve a life."
Of course they do, Chips, and it seems so obvious, and yet we do know that, um, unfortunately, not everybody looks at it that way. And I'm just thankful. I mean, that's a heartbreaking story. It's a heartbreaking thing to think about. And like I said earlier, there's always this contrast between joy and pain, between hope and despair. And in life, we oftentimes have to kind of hold both of those in tension. But there is hope, and there is goodness, and there is joy, thanks to the type of people like you, Chips, and your team, and the wonderful social workers and the doctors and all the many people on your team who are helping to go out and care for and intervene and feed and provide medical care for and ultimately teach these kids, making a difference for their lives individually and also making a difference for your country, making a difference for the world as you do this and as you serve in this way. I know it isn't easy. I know it's challenging and at times heartbreaking and probably discouraging. But if anything could come of today's conversation and or the response from anyone who might get in touch with you guys who listen or watch the program, my hope would be that you'd be encouraged because we see what you guys are doing, and it matters and it's making a difference, and it is a beautiful story in a day and age where there's a lot of ugliness, and we need to talk about these beautiful stories. So thanks for what you're doing, Chips. I know it's a big part of who you are and what you love to do, and I'm just thankful for it. And I'm now glad to be able to consider you a friend. Thanks for your work, and thanks for taking the time to join me today for the broadcast.
Thank you, Adam. Thank you very much.